The Dimp Digital Network presents Idle Game Chat.
Hello, Apps here from the Dimp Digital Network. Welcome to Idle Game Chat and welcome to our first edition of Games on the Grill. Games on the Grill is basically where we sit here and grill video games that we have been playing. We give our impressions, we do our best to kind of break down the game. We'll often go off on random tangents too, so don't expect to be completely focused, but episodes will feature either a handful of games, as we will barrel through them as best we can, and there may be some situations where we just focus on a singular game and really sink our teeth into that. But for this inaugural edition of Games on the Grill, I've got the elder statesman roped in. He's a former Dimp Digital Gaming Quiz champion, and he's currently plying his trade in the Dimp Digital FGL Grand Prix. It's Pacman himself. It's Tom Adcock. How you doing?
Hello, mate. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yes, very well, thank you. Are you excited to be on this inaugural episode of Games on the Grill?
Can't believe my luck, if I'm honest, mate. Wanted to do it yesterday, but somebody was a little bit drunk, so that didn't happen.
I drank way too much Friday, and Saturday was pretty much a write-off. The only way actually to get over that particular situation, I didn't start feeling better till I had some Prosecco in the afternoon.
Fucking hell.
That hair of the dog, people go, oh, it's bollocks. I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10 it'll sort you out, but that 1 time out of 10 where it makes you feel worse, you may want to avoid it. But I'm feeling good this morning, feeling refreshed. We've got a big session ahead of us for the IGC crowd, and I'm sure they're very excited to have Games on the Grill going. I wanted to just quickly check in with you actually before we started on the games for this session with the Fantasy Gaming League, the Grand Prix that you're taking part in. How you feel personally it's going for you, because now that we've got COVID-19 lockdowns, we've seen a lot of delays. Has it changed the DNA of what your plan originally was?
Yeah, I'm not in the individual league. I don't think I'm in good shape, really. I went for like a half boil of games that are sort of surefire to come out, but not really big hitters, and then a load of games that might come out, but they've, what we're now in Q2, and there's still like no announcements of any of them. So there's going to have to be some big subs, and I think it's going to take a big fuck of luck to get me anywhere up the top of that league, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a tough year because the added complications of COVID is really pushed back, and I think really it's unsettled people and their trust in games coming out, because we've seen The Last of Us 2 getting delayed out of May. That was, a month away. It was 4 weeks away from having that, and now they're like, nah, that ain't coming out till then. Probably still make 2020, but you think, well, what else is getting pushed back later on in the year?
Yeah, I wonder how their brain, because I feel like if you had like a little indie game, retro game or whatever, you'd probably, because people are obviously sitting at home playing games. Like I feel like any old consoles, the price is skyrocketing on all this stuff because people have got nothing else to do.
Yes,
but like our Naughty Dog's sitting there thinking, right, well, there's going to be a lot of people wanting the special editions. They're going to want this physical.
Yeah,
like because I can't. I mean, in my brain, anyone into video games, that gets dropped as a digital. Like, as much as I love a physical, I'd have to get that.
Yeah.
Have to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't really, I'm not too sure of the thinking. But then, I think if it's not like a AAA game, it'd be a great time to really get your game out there. People are sitting in, they're checking the net. You can advertise to them.
Yeah.
I mean.
Those that are digital releases primarily, like you said, the smaller games, there's definitely a good time to drop it. I think the big guys, like you mentioned, Naughty Dog or Sony, whoever's making that call, may well have looked at it and gone, the physical sales are going to be down on what they probably would have been. So let's try and do it when all the shops, or some of the shops at least, are open. I mean, you can still order physical online. Have it delivered,
that's it, right? And most of those places are still in business, right? As far as I know. So.
Yeah, in the UK, yeah.
I mean, maybe, they've probably been working on that game for, 7 years, 6 years or whatever, so maybe they just want the fanfare it deserves, come release. They know it's going to be an absolute monster, so just keep the coffers a little bit lower for 1 more or 6 more months or whatever, and then absolutely rake it in.
Well, we'll see also what's happening with the new generation of consoles. I imagine there'll be a difficult decision having to be made there, because that itself's probably less impacted in terms of people can get hold of them, but how much spare money have people got to drop 400, 500 quid on a new console after being furloughed or out of work for 3 months from this COVID thing?
Yeah, it's super interesting. I mean, because, for a lot of people, if you keep your job, I mean, furlough, no furlough, if your bills are reasonable, you're probably significantly better off at the moment. But then there's going to be a split down the middle of people who are literally struggling to pay the bills and whatnot. And a new console is going to be the last thing on their mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll certainly monitor it, and I'm sure at some point when we get some formal announcements on what's going on, we'll have a little chat about it here on IGC. But we're here to grill some video games, and on this session I want to kick things off with a game that the pair of us have both played, and we actually play it together. It's Man of Medan, Dark Picture Anthology. Now, for those that don't know too much about them, Supermassive Games developed this. The last game that they developed and released was Until Dawn, and this falls very much similar into that category of narrative-based games. You played Until Dawn. What did you think of that effort of Supermassive Games? Because it kind of had the DNA of the Telltale games, but production values were far, far bigger and better.
Yeah, I loved it, man. It was like classic sort of 80s, 90s horror film, like in a game, like decision-based, like quite a few characters. Yeah, I thought it was a really good game. I didn't really know much about it going in, but I played it with my nephew Marcus, better known, and we just passed the pad on it, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Yeah,
it was a good game. I think I enjoyed seeing a game like that with some proper production value, because all we'd had really is Telltale, and as good as they are, and I've enjoyed them, they're sort of middle of the road to lower it on their production values, and they creak. There's sometimes some problems with the graphics and whatnot, but this was it looked like a quote unquote a proper sort of AAA video game. Now, whether people would say it was because of the depth of gameplay is another issue. Another little fun fact: Rami Malek was starring in Until Dawn, went on to get an Oscar. So,
Jesus,
that's what you get. Freddie Mercury jobby, wasn't it?
I bet he buries that now on his CV.
Man of Medan. Until Dawn is definitely not on his CV. That's eradicated for sure. But I do love these narrative-based games, and I enjoyed Until Dawn as well. I didn't like the story as much. I remember enjoying the first half or the first sort of act or two of the narrative, and then when things sort of opened up a bit, I was a bit like, that's not really what I was up for. But I do love these sort of games. We've mentioned the Walking Dead series and the Telltale and all that good stuff. Life is Strange is kind of another series that I've enjoyed, and then Detroit Become Human, which released last year as well. And like we said, Man of Medan falls into that category. And it's interesting that you mentioned that you played Until Dawn sitting there passing the pad with Marcus. And that's something that I think Supermassive Games have been looking at. People saying, well, we enjoy this as a little bit of a multiplayer experience, because the big change, or the big addition for Man of Medan, is that there is multiplayer. There are two options. You've got movie night mode and shared story. Movie night mode works as you just described there. You control one character, and then it'll say, right, Tom, you'll go. You pass the pad, and you go back and forth between the different characters. But what we played together was shared story. So me and you logged on one evening. We went into a lobby. We joined up, and it allowed us to play the game at the same time. Basically, we'd control a separate character, often at the same time. Sometimes we'd meet up and have a little conversation, but I thought both of those features were kind of quite interesting. They've looked at the Twitch streaming community, saw how much fun people have in, and thought, right, let's try and implement this. What did you think of the shared story mode and how that actually worked?
Yeah, it's pretty smart. Like you don't have much say or no say at all in who you're playing as. Like you'll just start a new chapter, and then you're allocated a character. So you get a mix. You get to play as all the characters across the board, really. But yeah, I mean, it works really well, and I guess it gives it some. I mean, not that I would particularly want to do it again, but it obviously gives it replay value because one, you can. Well, actually, do you know what? It's got real replay value because obviously you can influence the story in many different ways, and then it's not split screen. So when you were off doing your thing, unless it was bringing us together, I didn't know what you were actually doing. So yeah. So you're only ever getting like 50% of the experience, which is fine. Obviously, you can talk to each other in a lobby and let people know what's going on.
Yeah, it was certainly, like you said, I think the word is smart to implement that so that people could play it across the board. And movie night mode, I think you can have up to like 4 or 6 people, so you'd all have like a character each, pretty much. It'd be annoying though if you sort of went down and died early on and you was like playing just one character and you had to sit out the rest of the story. Like, right, or someone did something that put your character in jeopardy and then they died and you're just like, right, now I've just got to sit and watch these fucking idiots play this. I'm not sure for big groups it's the right idea. One thing I noticed definitely in comparison to Until Dawn was it felt much shorter, and I'm pretty sure it was much shorter. Now I've played it solo. I played it solo first, which is one way the game's designed. Then I played it with you, where it was a bit more of a shorter experience because some of the scenes where I had to do both characters, you were off doing that part of the story on your own. But in terms of length, I think we bashed it out in 3.5 hours, 4 hours for shared.
Yeah, it's all right, wasn't it? It's just one night.
Yeah, we did it in one go. Now the RRP for Man of Medan was 25 UK pounds. Until Dawn was 50 UK pounds. So is that a fair trade-off that the length of the game is shorter and that we're paying less technically?
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember what I actually paid for it. Maybe 17 or so. Yeah, something in that wheelhouse. And that was fine. I feel like 25 is, I mean, it probably, for a brand new release, that probably is they can get away with that. I'd like to see it like 19.99 or I don't know if they've done this. It's part of obviously a series, isn't it? There's now a new one set in a small town or whatever. I don't know if you can buy the whole like series as a package. Because if that was then $89.99 and this was your bag, then I don't know what I'd work out how many they're doing, 3 or 5 or whatever. But that would be fine. But yeah, I mean, what you can pick it up for now is well worth it. And I guess with like a game like Resi 3 going for like $49.99 and people are saying that's 4 hours, then 25. Yeah, I mean, I guess that is fair, to be fair.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. And also, like, did you really want to play 30 hours of this type of game?
No. It was, I mean,
that's not a diss. It's just that they run their course, don't they? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I can't remember how long Until Dawn was, if I'm honest. Like twice as long.
7-8 hours I've got.
Yeah, which is fine. Yeah, I mean, this was fine. Like, I enjoyed it, and the pacing's good and gets you right into the action, I guess, which is fine. And yeah, you're right. Like, between sort of 5 and 10 hours, anywhere there is a sweet spot. This was just under, but obviously it's part of a wider series. I guess he's going to have some tie-ins or whatnot, or I don't know if it's just the narrator who ties it all together.
I think so, yeah. He's like got these. He's the one sort of reading the story, isn't he, to you? And like, I think these stories are all like the books that he's got in his. It'll be like what's that fella called out of the King novels? It always pops up and is lurking.
Yeah, exactly. Almost, I guess, like Tales from the Crypt, like the Crypt Keeper or something.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see where they go with. I think it's Lost Hope or Last Hope. The next one. It's supposed to be coming out in the summer, but as we mentioned, that old COVID-19 might put pay to that. But I'll certainly be interested in looking and getting that. I would love a package of all of them, but they're probably not going to do it to the end. So I ain't going to wait around. I'll be looking to get that. The one thing I point out every time with these games is how well they translate the look of the actors onto the game. Like the facial animation, this is fucking insane. Like the close-ups and every little detail of their face is captured and their reactions are captured. It makes you wonder whether there's other games out there that can sort of get to this level with a bit more of a robust gameplay loop, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, it does look phenomenal, really. It's a lovely looking game. I mean, yeah, 'cause I mean, this is pretty much exactly the same as Until Dawn, isn't it? In terms of like gameplay mechanics, it's kind of point click and like a bunch of quick time events. Yeah, I mean, it does. I mean, I can't wait to see. Well, Last of Us 2 looks like, and then these early games on next gen are just going to be insane.
Yeah. I think one of the problems that that Supermassive have had, and this is I thought present in Until Dawn and Man of Medan, is that there's a lot of walking around during certain points where you're exploring the environment and picking up clues or interacting with things. And I just found the controls really sluggish, like super slow, and like trying to turn somewhat. I remember there's bits when there's two of us trying to walk down like a little small gap in the game. It's like, and I was just like, we kept bumping into each other and getting twisted up, and I was like, Jesus Christ! They really ought to try and tighten the actual controls up. So I think they let themselves down in that area. But it's a horror game, and it is what it is. Jump scares galore. I preferred the end-to-end story with this one, I think, as compared to
over Until Dawn.
Yeah, just because.
Yeah, I was the opposite. I think I preferred Until Dawn. Like, without spoiling anything, I think I just like that type of horror kind of better when there's something more tangible. Whereas, this I'm always like kind of second guessing what's going on, and it kind of not like guessed anything, but it kind of went the way I expected it to. I think there's a couple of like giveaways, in the sort of like back third of the game that let you know where the story's headed. But I mean, that is the thing with this. It's all about the story, isn't it? That's why that movie night thing would work so well, is that really the gameplay elements are kind of take second base to the actual like acting and the story that's going on the screen. And just trying to keep everyone alive, I guess, is also then one of the sort of main, or not, if you don't really like the people.
We ended up with 2 people dying, didn't we? To
be fair, the second one, again, I'm not going to say anything, because I guess you must have known.
I had an inkling that might happen.
Yeah, I thought that was amazing, to be fair. Basically, I did something very early on in the game that seemed really unconsequential, and then it really came back to bite it. I was like, I think it was post-credits, wasn't it? It was real sting in the tail, just... Paul we'd got through it and then absolutely got someone KO'd.
Yeah, that was a nice little sort of twist on it in the end.
Do you know what? It literally was. Like, I would say whatever score I'd give it, I would have gave it an extra point just on top of that. It really got me, that did. It's brilliant. Yeah.
Have you got any interest of going back and doing like a solo run to see more of this? Because you probably only got about 60% of what can happen, because I was doing the other 40% or maybe the other sort of whatever percentage it is. We shared bits and pieces, but any interest in running through one evening on a solo run to see what other bits are there for you?
No, if I'm honest, but not because I didn't enjoy it, but I think I'd be more inclined to go back with somebody else, like, recommend it to a friend and do exactly what you did and play through. I don't know if I could somehow get the second half of the story that I missed, but that would be, I think it is a fun game to play. Like, I enjoyed Until Dawn in the same way, like with a bunch of people. So, that is my sort of go-to with these. I don't think, personally, for me, there's enough replay to see it through solo after doing it as a co-op. But it's so short. Like, if you're sitting around one evening, then I'd absolutely just blast through it if I had someone else to play it with.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I've started writing a letter to Supermassive of improvements they could make. So we've talked about the sluggish controls. We know that the facial animation is excellent, so keep up, sort of thumbs up there. The transitions between scenes is sometimes a bit jarring, I felt. Like, it didn't always make continuity sense, but a small price to pay with the amount of branching storylines, I guess. But the next stage, and this is what I want them to look at implementing, is some sort of psyche or mental stability meter within the characters. So depending on their personality, so if someone's quite strong, robust, sort of mentally headstrong, they're a bit more resistant to this than someone who's maybe a little bit more on the lower end of the scale. But the decisions that you make can improve or decrease their mental state. The higher mental state they have, so the more clear-headed they are, you get more time for your QTEs, more combat options, and perhaps some bonus dialogue options as well that can sort of avoid a bad situation. on the lower end of the scale. The QTEs are harder. You maybe reduce the amount of time you get in combat encounters, and maybe you even get a few cool little dialogue options for someone who's sort of having a breakdown due to the circumstances. Shall I put that in the open letter or not?
Yeah, man, get it in. Anything else that adds a bit more sort of gameplay to it, that is kind of a cool... I mean, the only thing is, though, mate, those quick ones, they're going to really get picked off then with that sort of... I'm shit at those quick time events, mate. I'm struggling as it is and panicking and sweating like grease monkeys, and got me fucking with someone with a fragile mind, giving me about 3 seconds. They're not going to last.
But then the sense of accomplishment of getting them improved from the bottom of the barrel to like the headstrong, and then watching someone who was all cocky to start with decline would be something interesting to watch. But yeah, it would make it hard for people because you do a few bad decisions and you could end up in a right torrid state with them. They just keep going down and down and down, and then eventually are killed. But that'll be quite fun.
Yeah, man, I like it.
Are you looking forward to Little Hope? As I said, 2020 is the release date, summer. We might not get it in the summer. It might come in the autumn or winter or maybe next year. But has Man of Medan done enough to get you sort of sniffing around a Little Hope when that comes out?
Yeah, man, I like this kind of game. I haven't played as many of these as you, but I really do like this format of game. And then yeah, I mean, it'd be nice if they got them out a little bit quicker, maybe. But whatever. I mean, I guess then there's overkill like the Resis. But yeah, like the different actual stories, and horror is like up there with my favourite genres of film and game and everything basically. So yeah, I'm well interested to see where they go with this, and what type of, because the trailer doesn't give a great deal away. No. So like I said, to be honest, for me, I thought the Until Dawn sort of horror like story and things was more up my street. So if they lean in that way again and everything else is roughly the same, that's fine with me. I guess that's interesting, if there will be any gameplay adjustments, or it will literally be cut and paste everything and then just a new story and skin on everything with new actors. But I guess we'll see. Yeah,
I can see it being more of a cut and paste jobby, but you never know. Maybe they do look at what they can improve from one iteration to the other and add things. But you'd think because they're part of one collection, they'll keep them relatively similar.
I wonder if they're all, you'd think story-wise they probably would have fleshed those out before they've done much else. And then, they're obviously running off the same engine. Maybe they've got, I don't know if the same team is doing them all, or if they've, got people working similar time. I don't know how they're doing it, but yeah, I mean, that would be my guess as well. But then if they're, engaged with the community and people are saying, they get that app's letter through and they're like, right, Douglas, get on this, get those mindscapes in. But yeah, I mean, even if it is just a cut and paste job, I'm on board.
Yeah, I'd like to see where they go with this, and whether there's like an underlying tie to the whole collection as well. But we'll see. A decent game for sure. What would you score it if you were in the scoring business? If you given you sort of a 0.5 decimal to work off as well, if you want to go middle of the road on a number.
Probably give it a solid 7, maybe. Do you know what? 7.5 for that little twist at the end. That was sweet as. I really did like that. I mean, I said I'd give it a point, but I've now backtracked half a point. But yeah, I mean, it's really fun. Like, you can pick it up for, like, I don't know, between £12 and £17 probably now. Well worth that. Play it with a friend. Like, I mean, Christ, it's the price of a posh cinema ticket, and it's, I mean, I've seen much worse films basically. So yeah, I thought it was really decent.
Yeah, I'd go the same, 7.5, I think. Which is a decent enough score, and something that if you're interested in these narrative type games, just play it, just get it. It's a no-brainer really. Moving on, I've got a little game, or a little couple coming up, I guess, for this particular episode. A Plague Tale: Innocence. Got this as a Christmas present. You got any idea what this is?
Literally, mate, not a clue. I'm just looking at the box art now. Online, Steam. I mean, is it a PC game? Is it on console?
It's on everywhere apart from Switch, I believe. So it's a cross
Switch platform. Missing out again, always.
Well, they always come like a year later, don't they? They're like, oh, here's this game that came out 18 months ago and it's full price again. You're like,
it's watered down, full price plus a tenner, watered down experience and shit controls. There you go, have that. Thank you. No, mate, I actually know nothing about it. So go on, give me an overview.
So I'll do the rundown of this. This is another. It's not a narrative focused game, but it has quite a lot of story in it, which is quite interesting. So it's set in France in like 1348, sort of Dostoevsky style date there. We've got the evil like Brexit English who are roaring around invading. It's the Hundreds War, so that's what's the sort of time period we're looking at. And you control this girl. I think she's about maybe 15 or something. Like, she seems like a sort of a mid-teen type girl called Amicia, and she's a young girl of noble descent. So she's by no means a pauper. She's got a very good life in comparison to a lot of the lower class scum that's sort of living in the bins in the surrounding areas. And she's got a younger brother called Hugo. He's been pretty ill since birth, so he's one of those sort of sickly kids that you find in these stories that's born and he's like, oh, I'm not very well. And he's kind of been quarantined whilst the mother's working on some sort of cure for what it is. And you're not revealed as to what's really gone on with him. Amicia doesn't really get to see him that often either because he's in quarantine. Dad called Robert, so that's the little family they've got. They're rich bastards, though. Anyway, it all goes to shit when the Inquisition rock up at the estate searching for Hugo. So they start slaughtering all the maids and the people that are on the premises. They're after this little kid. And because of this chaos, you're kind of forced to go on the run with Hugo and look after him. Primary goal is to avoid capture from these bastards, but also try and find a cure for this little shit because he's still very ill. So during the game, you've kind of got bloodthirsty guards on your tail that you've got to work out how to get around and stealth through. But I guess the unique thing that they've put into the game is there's hordes of rats that are also started to infest certain areas of the world. So they've got the bubonic plague. So they're obviously not. You don't want to go near those. And if you are surrounded by the rats and you don't have lights like fire, you haven't got any torches back then, they will basically devour you and kill you. So that's kind of how you got to avoid those guys. But that's the setup of the game. It is a stealth based game where you have sort of third person, you've got Hugo with you, and the main kind of mechanic in the game is that you've got this sling that she carries around, and you can use the sling to distract guards in certain areas or to knock down items to create like a fire so that the rats can't get to that certain area because there's light there. And yeah, it's a case of working through the game. There's a few twists and turns in there. It's a pretty basic game when you drill it down. You do have some combat moments, but it's an interesting game because it's quite heavily focused on the narrative between these two. And because she's not really got to know Hugo because he's been locked away ill, it's kind of the blossoming of their relationship as well. And you obviously know that Hugo's got something in him because you've got guards coming up your ass trying to kill you.
Right, so hang on. So is this mainly... I've just had a quick look at the gameplay. Is it kind of puzzle based where you're trying to clear a path using this sling and fire to get Hugo through and he's a bit of a hindrance? Or is it more like story heavy and Man of Medan again where they're not really puzzles, it's just pretty straightforward?
No, it's more puzzle. It's more gameplay focused.
Right, okay.
There's no choices or narrative decisions. It's all about how you can get from point A to point B without getting caught, essentially. And there's, like you mentioned there, each level or each area is kind of set up with very specific things that you'll have to do and time in order to get through without getting killed. And Hugo, when you have him with you, he kind of slows you down when you hold him because he can't walk as fast. So some bits you kind of have to make a distraction, leave him there, go into the weeds or the bushes because you can get there just in time, and then do another distraction and call him over so the guards don't see him, because it's not like The Last of Us where no one can see Ellie.
Right.
They can see Hugo and he can cost you, but he will never go out of your sight unless you kind of tell him to do it, so you are in full control of him.
Perfect. Right, so you've got so many commands you can do, like wait, come here, and all the normal stuff.
That's it, yeah. Can just send him out to his death, which, is a bit cruel, but that's an option there for
Well,
him.
he sounds like he's a fucking hindrance in that world, if I'm honest, mate.
Hey, he might hold the key to the cure of all this. You don't know.
Well...
Anything. I can't even remember now if he does or not, but...
How long is it? Is it a big game?
It's about... I think it's about 8 to 10 hours, I think. I didn't spend too long on it. I didn't go back or replay anything because there's a lot of like collectibles and things like that you can get. But it was a decent length.
I mean, to be honest, that is my absolute sweet spot now. Sort of that 7 to 12 hour game is perfect.
Yeah, it's probably more. I would say actually it's probably more 10 to 12, sort of dozen hours capping it out. But it depends how quick you play it, obviously. But I'd say you get about 10 hours out of it.
It sounds like the sort of game where you kind of have to be a bit methodical and whatnot, though.
Yeah, a lot of trial and error.
Yeah, those stealth games, can't be rushing through them. Do struggle with those.
No,
nice.
But it's got a decent setting. You don't really. I wasn't expecting a game like this to sort of arrive in 2019, but I got this as a Christmas present, and it's been out a little while, so the price was lower than what the initial release price was. When I looked up the fact that this was a full price game, I was completely shocked because the length is probably about right as a single playthrough, but everything else like production, graphics, voice acting, lip sync, all like the basic stuff was really like not up to scratch. And if it was a £25 game, you'd have gone, yeah, that makes sense. But anyone that sat there and paid £45 UK for this might be a little bit taken aback as to how they've passed it through as a full price game. In all honesty, I just assumed it was one of those like budget games, like 30 quid ish for some reason. And then when I looked, I was like, oh no, it wasn't.
So hang on, who made this, and have they made anything else that I would know?
Have they made anything else you would know? I don't think they have actually. I'm just trying to think exactly. I'll just look up what they've done, and we'll do it that way. But it's they've done the Crew 2. So it's a bit of a jump from the Crew 2 to this horror stealth puzzle game. So yeah, they've not got much sort of pedigree in this area. They've done a few other bits and pieces, but they helped with the Crew 2 on. I think they were mainly doing like ports, things like that. So it was like the Windows version of that, but yeah, and PS4 and whatnot. But they've not really done a great deal of their own stuff. So this is kind of like a new venture for them. It's okay. They're helping with Microsoft Flight Simulator next, so I don't know how that's all going down.
Fucking hell, they're jumping all over the place.
Yeah, mate. Big Phil wants to get people in, contract them.
He's just throwing money all over the place, isn't he? Get them on that first party studios. Is there much replay value in this? Would you go through again, or is it a one-shotter?
One-shotter. No interest in going back again, because it's like a game where it has a very specific kind of structure to it. Even after 10 hours, you're kind of like the last third, you're a bit like, right, I'm starting to wane by then. But yeah, it doesn't hold its weight to the full end. But yeah, it's decent for what it is.
I'm assuming it's one of those games where like what you start with is what you've got. Like you can interact with things, but it's generally like just plays on the same puzzles over and over and just.
Yeah, they obviously up the complexity, and you can unlock new items to put in your sling, which have different effects.
Right.
So you can cause distractions, or you can maybe there's a guard walking around with like a torch or a lamp, and you'll unlock a new sling item that can smash his lamp, and then the rats get him.
Right.
So you can do that, and it wants you to kind of mix it all together and try different things. And there's normally like a couple of ways you can do certain things if you're lucky, but there are some bits where it's like, no, you have to do this specific puzzle in this specific order using these specific items, and then you'll get through it. Otherwise, you won't have a chance in hell.
These fucking rats sound like something out of Stephen King.
They're quite cool, actually. Like they're quite cool how they look, how they come swarming at you, and as long as you've got a torch, you're fine. But it's quite cool just to knock a light out from like a guard and watch them just come up and absolutely slaughter him.
Jesus.
They walk over where the body is, and it's just like completely stripped of any sort of flesh. So they're definitely the highlight of the game.
Fucking hell. All right. Anything else to go over, or do you want to give it a score?
Yeah, no, I think that's about it for A Plague Tale: Innocence. I'm going to give it. It's tough. Do I 6.5?
Yeah, I mean, From what you said, it sounds about right, I guess.
Yeah, it didn't scream. It seems unfair because I didn't pay for it, but I could just imagine someone paying 45 quid for this and being like, what? Is that what we're doing now? So 6.5. If you've got a spare, it's cheaper now, so you won't have to pay that price. But if you fancy this, little 10-hour, 12-hour game, go through it. But there's not a lot of depth to it. Story's good though. Story's pretty decent.
It always helps.
Yeah, it helps you sort of pull it through. But that's a Plague Tale Innocence done.
Sweet.
Final one from me, Disco Elysium. So we covered this on our Game of the Year podcast, but I thought I'd just drop in the grading of this.
So just hang on, remind me, is this the one where you're a detective?
Correct.
And you've got different like personality traits that you can kind of like grow or
yes,
whatever, and then that helps with your...
It's the Homer Simpson simulator, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard of this and I remember you guys talking about it. Okay, so you finished this now, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I'd finished it anyway.
Okay.
But because we was doing just Game of the Year, I didn't score
Grade it.
We were sort of brisking through it. And but yeah, it's a good game. Like, obviously it's a proper RPG.
Yeah.
So not for everyone, but if you had any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If not, I'll just rattle through and...
No, I think I've heard like a lot of places talk about this, and I've heard nothing but good things. So I'm assuming you enjoyed it, and look forward to hearing this score. But if you want to just give it a like quick overview and then score it off. Yeah,
so it's an RPG, isometric, currently only on PC, but console ports apparently are due. And you take control of a detective who's a fucking pisshead, basically, wakes up with a stinking hangover like I did yesterday, and is trying to really figure out what he's doing in this weird little town, why he's been called in. It turns out there's been a murder there, and you're off to basically solve the murder. And along your way, you kind of uncover, and as you'd expect, branches off into all sorts of different directions and whatnot. But the core thing that makes this RPG different is that you have these voices in your head that are constantly nipping at you and giving you advice based on the conversations you're having with other people. So, for example, if you've leveled up your strength, your physical strength, there's like an alpha voice in your head who wants to just sort of like bulldoze through everything. So he'll be like, right, just knock this fella out. And like you can choose that as an option, just to like physically just harm someone rather than talk your way through it. And it sounds really complex. It sounds like it can get a bit messy, but it's not. The only thing is, like I mentioned on the Game of the Year podcast, is that there's just so much reading in this, like tons and tons and tons of reading. So if you're not up for reading things, absolutely not a game for you. But an interesting RPG, and storytelling's really good. Probably a bit too long for its own good, like 35 hours. I was like, Jesus.
Oh, really? Jesus.
Yeah, this is a long one, but it's good. It's certainly earns the accolades that it's received in the last year. And yeah, I would, if you're interested in RPGs, recommend giving this a whirl. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. But again, if you don't like proper RPGs, like old school RPGs, you're probably not going to change your mind with Disco Elysium, to be honest. So I don't know if you have much interest in those, but I don't think it's going to be changing your mind if you sat down and played it.
Yeah, I get ya. All right, well, go on, score me.
Torn. Gonna give it a 9.
Jesus. Sweet.
Hey, Game of the Year nominee.
Yeah, clearly. Wow.
Yeah. I was torn between that and an 8.5, but I just thought it does quite a lot of unique things and kept me engaged for like 80% of the 30 hours, which is pretty good considering how much reading's in there.
Yeah.
And I do want to actually, it's one that we talked about, 2 games where you wouldn't want to go back and play Man of Medan again unless it was like co-op. I wouldn't do a Plague Tale Innocence again at all, but I would quite happily sit down and go for a completely different sort of build of my character and try different things in Disco Elysium. I think that, in like 3-4 months' time, I'll boot this up again and go, right, let's just try and do like a meathead run through and see how far we get. See other ways that we can solve the situations we find ourselves in. But yeah, so it is a good game and worthy of all the accolades that it got in 2019. But that's it for this first edition of Games on the Grill. So we got through 3 there, which is pretty good. Expect this to be back in the near future with another batch of games, or perhaps a single game with a single focus, getting really deep into it. But nothing more for us to say apart from thanks for your time and ta-da.
This was a Dimp Digital production.